Namaste, good evening, and welcome to the Vedanta Society of Greater Houston and our class on the Mundaka Upanishad. Om Namo Brahma Dibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsharshibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Narayanam Padma Bhuvam Vasishtam Shaktim cha Tatputra Parasharam cha Vyasam Sukham Gauda Padam Mohantam Govinda Yogindra Matasya Shishyam Shri Shankaracharya Matasya Padma Padam cha Hasta Malakancha Shishyam Tantrotakam Vartikakara Manyan Asmadgurun Santatamanatos Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karne Vishnuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashye Makshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Stushtvagum Sastanubhihi Vyashema Devahitai Yadayuhu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Our salutation to the ancient lineage of teachers, beginning from the divine being itself, who revealed this sacred knowledge to Brahma, the creator, who in turn revealed it to the first sages, who passed it down through a continuous succession of teachers and disciples from the most ancient times to our present day. To all of them, our profound salutations. O ye gods, may we hear auspicious words with our ears. May we see that which is auspicious with the eyes while in sacrifice. While praising the gods with steady limbs, may we enjoy a life that is beautiful to the gods. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So this evening we will continue our study of the Mundaka Upanishad, where we left off last time. So we are still on the first Mundaka, that is the first part, which is divided into two chapters. We're on the second chapter of the first Mundaka, and we're to start tonight on verse 12. There are the two verses left in this chapter, 12 and 13. So just for background, let me remind you that in this chapter, it begins with a praise of the sacrificial religion of the Vedas. That is, saying that the chapter begins with Taretat Satyam. This is true. That the sacrifices, the mantras and the sacrifices, that these are effective. That they will bring the good things of life. They will bring heavenly life, good things in this life and the good things after death as well. And then so there are several verses in praise of the sacrifices. But then in verse 7, verse 6 begins with the beautiful words, Ehi, Ehi. The oblations that you have offered through the ritualistic portion of the Vedas, they become the rays of the divine sun, which come to call you at death. When you pass away from this life, then these rays come as angelic beings and say, come, Ehi, Ehi, come follow us to the realm of great divine beauty in the heavenly world. And they take you to this realm of heavenly glory, which it says, Eja va punya sukrito brahmaloka. This is the divine world, which is the fruit of your good works, the good works that you did on earth. And so again, they begin this first part of the second chapter of the first Mundaka says that all of this is true, that if you want it, that you can have. But then in verse 7, which we read last time, it says, Plavahete adrita yajnarupa. This is a frail raft indeed, which is formed of the sacrifices. That is, it's a frail raft to take us to the truth, because it won't get us there. It will take us to heavenly enjoyment. And as I said last time at great length in the explanation, I said that that we can have if we want it, but it's a waste of time. We gain nothing from it. We go and we have a great time. There's a world without pain, a world without suffering. It's a world just of enjoyment, refined enjoyment. But when you come back, you don't even remember having been there. And you're none the better for having been there. So it does nothing for you. So the Upanishadic sages, by that time, they had realized that this was vain. The whole search for this heavenly life was vain. So Swami, I didn't say this in the last class, Swami Vivekananda, when he was in California in 1900, he spoke out against the search for heaven because, of course, as I did say last time, religious people all over the world, whether in India or outside of India, most people seek heavenly life and heavenly enjoyment. And so Swami Vivekananda spoke against that and said, no, like the Upanishadic sages, and said, no, the goal of life is to realize the truth, the self. That alone will give immortality. And so since he spoke out very strongly against this desire of people to go to heaven in his sermon given at a Unitarian church in Oakland, California, the next Sunday, the Unitarian minister, who was a woman, Unitarians have always been socially progressive, so even at that time they had a woman minister, which was even now there's some denominations that will not allow that. So the woman Unitarian minister, the title of her talk was Heaven and How to Avoid Going There. So we have no idea what she said, but she took her cue from Swami Vivekananda's words. So, plavahete adritha yajnarupa, that frail indeed, adritha is this raft, plava, which is formed of the sacrifices, yajnarupa, which includes, as I explained last time, sacrifices which we don't have a sacrificial life in the sense of the Vedic life anymore, even in India. In classical Hinduism, that type of religion passed out. It's only practiced by a very few people as sort of a historical memory. It's not a living religion. But the sacrifice of our life is the sacrifice in charity, the sacrifice of good works, the sacrifice in trying to be a good citizen, the sacrifice of doing the right thing, all of which takes great renunciation. To be a good person, to tell the truth, to be honest, to be charitable, all of that is a sacrifice. So it's more a direct sacrifice rather than a symbolic sacrifice now. And that, yes, that too can carry us to heavenly enjoyment. Many people say, it's a common saying, that there are many atheists who are better than many religious people. And that's true. We've all known atheists who were very good people. We've known atheists who are not good people too, but that's because people are people. It's not atheism that makes one good or bad, in other words. So people say that, oh, I've known atheists who were good people. So yes, goodness itself is to be praised, and that's hard. But just goodness, just being charitable, that's not enough. That's not enough. We want that which is far beyond that. We want freedom. We want infinite freedom, infinite knowledge, infinite freedom, infinite expansion, immortality, that which lasts forever. But that gives the wrong idea, lasts forever. When we think of something lasting forever, that's lasting forever within time. It's time that lasts. The timeless doesn't last. It is immediate. There's no sense of time there. There's no sense of, my God, I've been here in Nirvikalpa Samadhi for a long time. I'm getting pretty tired of it. No, there's no sense of passing any time. There's just immediacy, immediate, timeless infinity. And so it's not really last forever. It is forever right now, with no sense of time whatsoever. So that's what the Upanishadic teachers told us we should seek. And so the last verse we did the last time, verse 11 says, and I'll just read the English, "Verily those who live in the forest, leading a life of austerity, tapasya, and devout worship, upasana, peaceful, wise, and keeping the mendicant's rule, these stainless men go by the solar gate to where that immortal being dwells." So they go to the highest realm, which is Brahmaloka. This is talking about, as I explained last time, Krama Mukti, where after you die, you go to the realm of Brahma and remain in a profound state of blissful contemplation, meditation. It's almost a formless realm. There's still the slight presence of form and the slightest, most subtle sense of time, but highly, highly refined. And so this is not the heaven that people are thinking of when they think of a heaven of enjoyment. This is higher than that, higher because it's better, more refined, more blissful. These stainless men go by the solar gate to where that immortal being dwells, where the solar gate of the sun, in many traditions around the world, was seen as in symbolic terms. It wasn't seen just as a big fireball in the sky, but as a spiritual presence, which represented a higher spiritual truth. So here it's the gate through which one goes to the higher world. And that's why in the Isha Upanishad, it ends with beautiful verses addressed to the sun. Hiranyamayena patrena satyasyapi hitam mukam. The face of the sun is covered by a golden disc. Please, O sun, remove that golden disc from your face so that I, who am a seeker of truth, may perceive your face of truth. And so the sun was always seen in religious terms. Or one could say that there's more to the sun than we see. There's the physical presence of the sun, but it has a spiritual dimension as well. So now we come to verse 12, which says, let me get the sweater markings here. Parikshya lokan karmachitan brahmano nirveda mayannatyat krita kritena tadvijnanartham sagurumeva bhigachet samitpani shrotriyam brahmanishtam. So this says, Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmano. The Brahmin, here it doesn't mean one who is born in the Brahmin caste. It means one who has the qualities of a Brahmin. That is one who is spiritually minded. So the spiritual aspirant, the seeker of the truth. The seeker of the truth, pariksha karmachitan lokan, having examined pariksha, having examined the worlds that are karmachitan, which are gained through good karma. So the spiritual seeker, having examined the worlds which are available through performance of good karma, through sacrifices, through charity, etc. Nirveda mayan nastya krita kritena. Nirvedam ayat. Should come to indifference. Having examined these worlds, these heavenly worlds that are attainable through good karma, the wise soul should come to a sense of indifference towards them. No, that's not what I want. I'm going for something much higher than that. Now I understand that I can go there. But after going there and living for a long time in great happiness, I have to come back here where I was before and start all over again. And I'm the same person I was when I left. Same person I was. So, and I don't even remember the long vacation that I spent. So it does me absolutely no good. Absolutely no good. These are worlds where we don't learn anything. We don't make new karma. We don't work out old karma. We don't improve our character. We don't work on ourselves. These are worlds of just enjoyment. Ah, so beautiful, so wonderful, so pleasurable. It feels so good, it looks so good, it smells so good, it tastes so good. There's no pain, there's no indigestion, there's no high blood pressure, there's no aching joints, no knee replacements, no hip replacements. None of these things are necessary. It's so wonderful, so pleasant. You feel practically weightless, like I'm not carrying this heavy body around anymore. I can practically fly about. So wonderful, so sublime. And it lasts for a long time. And then suddenly you find yourself going to sleep, and you wake up again being slapped by the doctor when you're being born, as you come out of the mother's womb and weeping. And so with no memory whatsoever of what you did, and nothing changed. You're the same person that went in, the same person comes out. So having examined Pariksha Lokan Karma Chitan, so having examined these worlds attained by karma, the Brahmano, the spiritual person, Nirvedam Ayat, should attain to indifference. No, that's not what I want. Nasti na asti krita na asti akrita kritena. That is, that the uncreated akrita cannot be attained kritena, by a temporal means. Kritena, by action, by doing something, by making a sacrifice, by making charity. You can't attain the akrita, that which is uncreated, that which is unmade. That is the reality itself. We can't attain to God, we can't attain to Brahman through means of just charity and sacrifice. Now again, as I indicated last time, this doesn't mean that a life of goodness, a life of generosity is bad. No. But a spiritual person does those things from a spiritual standpoint. Not, I'm doing it because I want name and fame here for my generosity, and after death I want to go to a heavenly world. No, I'm doing it because it's the right thing. Buddha said, be good because it's good to be good. Don't look for another reward. Confucius said the same thing in China, though Confucius didn't have the enlightenment that Buddha had, and so for him it was not from as high a standpoint as the Buddha said. For Confucius, it was more from a moral, ethical, and societal standpoint. But Buddha said from a spiritual standpoint, be good because it's good to be good. So be charitable because that's what you should be. That's what makes you a good person. Be good, be truthful, be honest, because it's good to be those things. You will be a better person. The quality of your mind, the quality of your being, the quality of your experience, everything will become clearer, better, brighter, because you have become a good person. Don't do it because I want to be recognized as a good person. Don't do it because I want the praise of society. Don't do it because I want my name, the Swami Atmarupananda medical building at some university. I got my name on the medical building, and everybody who sees it will remember me. No, not for these reasons. Do it because it's good to be good. So again, for a spiritual person, yes, we should lead a sacrificial life. We should lead a generous, charitable life, but for different reasons, for different motivation. So one should attain to indifference because the uncreated, the reality itself, cannot be attained by created means. That's why this is not what the verse is saying, but it does give the reason why. In all traditions, including even Advaita Vedanta, non-dualistic Vedanta, where God is not that much spoken of in the pure Advaita Vedanta, accepted but not much spoken of, that grace is needed. For devotees of God, the grace of God is needed. For those who follow the path of pure jnana yoga, the path of knowledge, either the grace of the guru or the grace of the self. But somehow grace is needed because the uncreated cannot be attained through temporary means, which means it can't be attained through meditation. It can't be attained through japa. It can't be attained by giving good gifts in charity with the highest motivation. All of those things purify the mind so that the mind can be flooded with grace from the other side. Because revelation comes from the other side. It doesn't come from the ego. I practice meditation. That's the ego practicing meditation. And I should practice meditation. And I have to use the ego because that's all that I've got, the I sense, the sense of being an individual. I, Swami Atmarupananda, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and sit and I'm going to meditate. That's the ego speaking. Good, good. But that ego doing something like meditating and doing for a long time, it's not going to win the uncreated, the absolute reality. What it does is it purifies the mind so that, as Sri Ramakrishna said, the wind of God's grace, which is always blowing, that can reveal itself to me. Until I'm ready, it does me no good that God is standing there ready to give me the jewel of great price because I'm not even paying attention. God is standing there trying to give it to me, and I don't pay any attention to it. So I have to do what I can do from the side of the individual, the egocentric individual, to do what I can do to purify the mind. But the revelation comes from the other side. So when a person, usually after years of practice, one day suddenly the mind starts out just feeling like the mind every day, restless and not cooperating, and I'm struggling to do japa and to meditate. Suddenly one day the mind just becomes silent. Suddenly the mind just enters into meditation. And I think, what did I do today that I didn't do all of these other days? That suddenly the mind just cooperated. Suddenly everything just flowed. Well, you try to figure it out so that you can do it tomorrow again, because you think that this is what I've been trying to do, and I never could do it. I couldn't even see how to do it, and I thought it was impossible. Now suddenly it just happened. That's because these things come from the other side. They're not under the control of the ego. What we can do is to purify the mind, and then that comes. So through the uncreated is not attained through any temporary means. Tad vijnanartham sa guru mevabhigachet. So for tad vijnanartham, for the sake of knowing that, for the sake of knowing the highest truth. That spiritual aspirant, again, which having looked at the worlds and seen them insufficient, attains to indifference, knowing that the uncreated cannot be attained by created means. So that person, for the sake of knowing that highest truth, gurum eva abhigachet, should approach the guru alone, should approach the spiritual teacher, samitmani, with firewood in hand. And I'll explain that in a moment. Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam, a guru who is Shrotriyam, one who knows the essence of the scriptures, and Brahmanishtam, one who is fixed in Brahman, one who, the highest guru, of course, is one who has Brahmajnana, who has attained to full knowledge of Brahman. Such gurus are extremely rare and difficult to find anywhere and at any time. They exist, but they're extremely rare and difficult to find. But at least one who has the mind fixed in Brahman as the ideal and is going towards it with the full force of their life force. So one should go to such a teacher. Samit Pani, Samit firewood, Pani in the hands. So Samit Pani means that it was the tradition in those days, in Vedic times, that everyone had the household fire, the sacrificial fire, which was kept going all of the time. And every day offerings were made into the fire. This was before the age of temples and murtis, images and all of that. The household worship was very simple. And the rituals became more and more complex, tremendously complex, so that many of them could only be performed by kings and people with great wealth. But the everyday religion of the common people was very simple. You kept a household fire, and you kept it going throughout your life. when you married and started your own household, then you would have the household fire. Or if you lived in the house of your parents, you kept that fire going, and you made offerings every day. So firewood was always necessary. So you went to the Guru with a simple offering of firewood that would be always welcome, wood that had already been cut and readied for burning. So when I, as most of you know, joined in Chicago and was sent to Ganges Town. In those days in Ganges Town, there was an older brahmachari who later became Swami Kalikananda. Some of you perhaps met him in Ganges or Chicago. He was much older than I was 19 when I came, and he was like 42 or 43 by that time. He was still a brahmachari. He'd been allowed to join late. But when he joined, because he was allowed to join late because he had served Swami Vishwananda, the previous Swami, in his old age and lived with him and took care of him and everything. So Billermutt made an exception and allowed him to join at the age of 40. So because he had been around for a long time and studied with Swami Vishwananda and everything, when Swami Bhashananda came and he decided to go and join, and Swami Bhashananda told him he would accept him, then when he came from his apartment to actually live in the monastery, he came with firewood in hand and gave it to Swami Bhashananda, which was, Swami Bhashananda was delighted with that. For years after that, he would tell about how John, later Swami Kalikananda, had come Samit Pani with firewood in hand and laid it at the feet of Swami Bhashananda. He said, yes, this is the way one did in the olden times. So that was from this verse. So the running translation is, having scrutinized the worlds gained by deeds, a man of spiritual inclination should become indifferent to them. For deeds which are originated cannot win the Supreme, who is unoriginated, uncreated. Therefore, to know that, let him become a pupil under a preceptor who is both learned in the scripture and established in the spirit. Brahmanishtam, established in the spirit. So Swami Vivekananda said in his beautiful lecture, one of his beautiful lectures given in San Francisco called Discipleship. He says there that, and he says in other places also, that in choosing a spiritual teacher, one should see that the teacher has three qualities. And if the teacher has these three qualities, then you can trust yourself to them. One is that he is Shrotriyam, which is here. That is, he knows the essence of the scriptures. He doesn't have to be a pandit. He doesn't have to have memorized texts. He doesn't have to know Sanskrit, but has to know the essence of the scriptures, know the intent of the scriptures, know the essence of their instruction, what should be done in order to progress towards spiritual attainment, what the nature of that attainment is, etc. So he should know the essence of what the scriptures teach. Second thing is that his life should be pure. That is, there's no difference between his words and his life. He's not leading one kind of life and teaching something else, which is unconnected. As Swamiji said, for a ordinary topic like physics or chemistry or linguistics or whatever the academic topic is, it doesn't matter what the character of the person teaching is, because the purpose of learning those things is not transformation of character. But when it comes to spiritual things, the character is extremely important. And there's the danger, as Swamiji says, that, and Sri Ramakrishna also says in places, that if the teacher is not good, then he can convey that also to the disciple. And so the teacher's life should be pure. So they should be Shrotriyam, they should know the essence of the scriptures, their life should be pure, not poor, should be pure. And the third is that the teacher should have only the welfare of the disciples as his highest interest. That is, as something perversion that you see a great deal of in modern Hinduism is that the teacher has oftentimes become the center of attention. Everything exists for the sake of the teacher. The disciples are there to praise and to glorify the teacher. So the teacher is the value, and the disciples are just satellites there to praise and glorify the teacher. And it's all adoration going in one direction towards the teacher. But no, the teacher, no matter how much they may be respected for their qualities, that itself is good, of course. But the teacher's intent should be that I want to give my best to the students. I want to give my best to the students. I want them to enjoy that which I have attained. I want them to grow spiritually. That they don't exist to make me happy and to make me think that I'm a great person or to pad my pocketbook. I'm here to help them. So if a teacher has these three qualities, they know the essence of the scriptures, their life is pure, and their motivation is the welfare of the students, then such a teacher can be trusted. So here again, it says that the teacher should be Shrotriyam and Brahmanishtam. So two of those qualities are mentioned here. It's just the last one which is not mentioned. And then about the student, it says, oh no, that's in the next verse. Yeah, that's in the next verse. So let's come to the next verse, verse 13, which says, Tasmai sa vidwan upasannaya samyag prashanta chittaya shamanvitaya yenaksharam purusham veda satyam provachatam tattvato brahma vidyam. So this is let me mention that these two verses are very famous because they deal with the nature of teaching the spiritual knowledge. And of course, those of you who have listened to a number of my classes know that I'm always saying these are very famous verses, but that's because there are a lot of famous verses. But I don't say that about every verse. They're just in every scripture, there are a few here and there that are very famous. And so these are very famous verses. The previous one and this one, Tasmai sa vidwan upasannaya samyak prashanta chittaya shamanvitaya. So let me drop down a little lower into the verse and say that this is saying that the teacher should teach tasmai savidwan, that knowing one, the vidwan, tasmai, to this student who comes to him, shrotriyam samitpani shrotriyam brahmanishtam, who comes to him in the proper way, carrying firewood, who is upasannaya samyak, who has approached the teacher in the proper manner. So this, the knowing teacher should teach to this disciple who has approached him in the proper manner. That is, with firewood in hand, humbly requesting spiritual knowledge, and who is prashanta chittaya, who is of peaceful mind. His mind has become tranquil. So his mind has become tranquil. Of course, here is not speaking of transcendental tranquility, because that you attain with illumination. But this is a student who knows what it is that he wants. He's come to a sense of conviction that, yes, now my mind is not going in all kinds of directions. I know what it is I want. I'm coming in this direction. So to such a student who is approached properly, who is of peaceful mind and shamanvitaya, and who has control of his mind, Shama Anvitaya, who has Shama. So Shama refers to, traditionally is thought to refer to the 6 treasures of moral virtues that a spiritual aspirant should have. Shama, Dhamma, Uparati, Titiksha, Samadhana, Shraddha. So Shama means controlling the senses. But Shama means really restraining the mind from following the senses. The eyes want to look, the ears want to hear, and so keeping the mind restrained, not running after the senses. Dhamma, the next in the six qualities, means controlling the senses themselves. The mind, the hand always wants to reach and touch things, the feet want to move, the tongue wants to talk, the ear wants to hear, the nose wants to smell, the eyes want to look around. So controlling the external organs. So Shama is controlling the mind from the sense organs, saying that no, I'm not going to run after the eyes, I'm not going to run after the ears. Dhamma means controlling the external organs. That is, gaining control over the external senses. So they're not always trying to go out and look and hear and feel and touch and taste and smell. Then uparati means giving up the, there's several meanings that are given to uparati. Every teacher picks out one of them. So I like the meaning for uparati, which means ceasing, basically. So ceasing from the actions which are contrary to the spiritual path. Uparati, okay, I'll give those things up. I don't want those things. Uparati samadhana is control of the mind. Let's see, I'm missing one. Shama, Dhamma, Uparati, Titiksha. Titiksha, of course, is forbearance. If we don't have forbearance, we can't even lead a normal life. Without forbearance, we can't lead even an ordinary worldly life, because everything upsets us. And so for spiritual life in particular, we have to develop great titiksha, great forbearance. Because otherwise everything sends the mind into a tizzy. Everything that happens, oh my God, what has happened now? Oh my God, oh my God. Everything is exciting the mind. So we have to be able, titiksha means the ability to hold on, to stay steady in the midst of difficult situations. Shankaracharya defines it in the Viveka Sahanam sarvadukhanam apratikara purvakam. Sahanam sarvadukhanam, the forbearance of all miseries, all discomforts, all pains, the forbearance of all suffering. Sahanam sarvadukhanam apratikara purvakam, without thinking of revenge. I'm going to get that so-and-so who insulted me the other day. Just wait till I get my chance to tell them what I think about them. And I'll insult them in front of their friends also. So no, to forbear everything that comes without the thought of revenge, pratikara purvakam, chinta vilapa rahitam, without thinking about, oh my God, I'm suffering such great misery. Not even to think about that and not to talk about it. Sa titiksha nigadyate. That is called true titiksha. So that, of course, is an ideal. That's a high ideal. So when we hear something like that, the response should not be, I'm not anywhere close. I'm a worthless person. How am I ever going to get there? No, we should think, that's an ideal. That's where I want to go. So let me start step by step moving in that direction. So Shama, the control of the senses, the mind from the senses. Dhamma, controlling the senses themselves. Uparati, giving up contrary actions. Titiksha, forbearance. Samadhana, steadiness of mind, control of the mind, which it indicates a meditative mind. And Shraddha, faith. So those are the six jewels. So here it just mentions this Prashanta Chittaya, one who is peaceful of mind, and Shamanvitaya, who has restrained the mind from the senses. Again, enough so that they can practice spiritual discipline. Again, not that of a realized soul. Yenaksharam purusham veda satyam provachatam tattvato brahma vidyam. So one should, that knowing teacher, that wise teacher, should teach such a disciple, yenaksharam purusham veda satyam, how that imperishable Brahman, the ultimate reality, which is the Atman, the Brahman, the infinite reality of this universe, is who I am. How that imperishable Brahman can be known. I should teach him how that imperishable Brahman can be known in truth. Satyam, provachatam, tattvato brahma vidyam. Should teach that Brahma Vidya, that knowledge of Brahman, in truth. So the teacher should not hold anything back from the disciple. So the Buddha famously said that I have not had, what is the mushti, what is the term for, I haven't taught with a clenched fist. That is, I've given everything freely. And so Swami Vivekananda also said that he and Sri Ramakrishna had come. They didn't hold back some esoteric doctrine which was just meant for the privileged. They taught everything to everyone, so that people in their own way could begin to approach it, to see it as an ideal and to begin moving towards it. So the running translation is, to such a seeker whose mind is tranquil and senses are controlled, and who approaches him in proper form, let the wise teacher impart the science of Brahman, Brahma Vidya, in its very essence, Tattvato, the science by which one knows the true imperishable being. So this is why the guru, not just any teacher, not even just any teacher of spiritual things, but the actual guru, why they are respected. Again, the purpose of the guru is not to be glorified by the disciples. The purpose of the guru is to help the disciples to attain to that which they have realized. But they're respected because they are the ones who give us this knowledge and show us the path to attain the path leading to that knowledge. And so. When, as it said, when the teacher is capable and when the disciple is ready, then that which transpires is marvelous. The rest of us, those of us who are ordinary students who come and do what we can, but we're not born with extraordinary qualities, then we do the best that we can. No one is expected to do better than they can. We do the best that we can and move step by step. And one day we too will attain to adhikara, that is fitness for the highest spiritual knowledge. We do that by emulating these qualities of a true disciple. So the people who come asking, well, how do I find my teacher? How do I find a guru? And not people who are part of the Ramakrishna tradition who mean, where can I find a Swami who can initiate me? No, not that, but just in general, where can I find a guru? So I always tell people, don't worry about that. Thinking only about that is what gets many people into trouble. People who go looking for a guru, and the first person who promises them something and has a number of followers who are goo gaga over them, then they give themselves to the teacher, and then they find themselves badly cheated, if not worse. And so the first thing to do is not to go find a guru. The first thing to do is to become a disciple, to work on myself and try to improve myself. And then when the time comes, I will feel it myself. It doesn't mean that, and it can happen, but it's extremely rare, and we shouldn't expect that it's going to happen to me, that suddenly the teachers reveal to me in an experience or in a dream or something. That's extremely rare that an authentic experience like that comes. But something within me tells me that now is the time, and this is what I want to do, and here is a person that I can trust. And so then we seek higher spiritual instruction. So to such a seeker whose mind is tranquil and senses are controlled and who approaches him in proper form, let the wise teacher impart the science of Brahman in its very essence, the science by which one knows the true imperishable being. So let me just begin the second Mundaka, the first chapter of the second Mundaka. So this would be 2.1.1. And this first verse of the Mundaka says, Tare tat satyam yatha asu deeptat pavakad vispulinga sahasrasha prabhavante sarupaha tatha aksharad vividha somya bhava prajayante tatra chaivapi yanti. Like the previous chapter, this first verse, like the first verse of the previous chapter, begins Taretat Satyam. That which is being said is true. So in the previous chapter, it was about the sacrificial part of the Vedas, the Brahmanas of the Vedas, which teach how to perform sacrifices. So saying that this is true. What it offers, what it promises, it delivers. But then that chapter ends by saying, but what it delivers is not enough. That's not enough. It won't do you any good. So here it's saying again, Tade Sat Satyam, that which is said is true. And but here it's going to start giving the higher knowledge. But it first starts talking about the universe itself. And it says, Tadetat Satyam Yatha Sudiptat Sudiptat Pavakat Bispulinga Sahasrasha Prabhavante Sarupaha. So just as from a Sudiptat Pavakad, a ignited fire or a well-fueled fire, a fire which is burning brightly, Vispulinga Sahasrasha, thousands of sparks, Prabhavante, originate from the fire. Thousands of sparks fly from a fire which is burning well. And those sparks are Sarupaha. They're of the same nature as the fire itself. So you have a fire which is burning brightly. And remember, of course, everybody has experience of fire, but in Vedic times, life itself centered around fire, not around an electric stove, not around a gas heater, not around an electric space heater. But fire was the very center of their religious life, the very center of their home life, the center of their cooking life. Civilization existed around the fire. The fire was the central fact of civilization. It was control of fire which allowed civilization to arise from primitive man. Fire, the control of fire, the ability to start and maintain and continue a fire that gave the possibility of civilization. And so ancient people were not so far removed from that. And so they had the worshipful attitude towards fire. They recognized fire as a divinity, as a divine gift, and also as a present divinity. And so just as yatha, just as from a blazing fire, thousands of sparks of the same nature as the fire originate. Tatha aksharad vividha somya bhava. In the same way, O Somya, O pleasant-looking one, good-looking one, Somya. Here it doesn't mean good-looking in the Hollywood sense, that he looked like, I can't even think of movie star's name, Brad Pitt or somebody like that. No, it wasn't saying, oh, you sure are good-looking, boy. But good-looking because from a spiritual standpoint, a person begins to see in the human face spiritual qualities, and they no longer see it from the standpoint of Hollywood or Bollywood. You no longer judge it according to, wow, that's a really beautiful woman, or that's a really beautiful man, and so forth. No, you see there's a pleasantness, there's the beginning on the spiritual path that's different from ordinary faces. And so that is the source of beauty for a spiritual person. It comes to be the source of beauty, the experience of beauty. And so a spiritual person no longer looks at people whether they're Hollywood beautiful or Hollywood ugly. You look at them from the standpoint of these inner qualities which show through the face. The face reveals the quality of the person. So from in the same way as from a fire, sparks of the same nature as the fire come out, so from the imperishable, aksharad, vividha bhava, the differentiated existences, the differentiated things, the differentiated manifestations are born. Just as fire from the fire, sparks fly from the fire of the same nature, so from the imperishable, things that are of the same nature as the perishable, prajayante, are born, tatra shaivapi yanti, and there itself alone they return. So from out of the akshara, out of the imperishable Brahman, out of the spiritual reality, all of these things in the universe around us, all of these things have been born. And into that they return. Tatra chaivapi yanti. There itself they return. So this is important because it says that just as from the fire thousands of sparks of the same nature as the fire are born, so from the imperishable all of these things are born of the same nature as the imperishable. Everything that we see here seems to be the opposite of the imperishable. This glass is very fragile. You drop it on the stone floor and it breaks into many, many pieces. The water itself it can be soaked up in the carpet. It can be dried by the air and so forth. The same with this cup. This book can be thrown into the fire and there's no more book. If you're lucky, if it doesn't burn completely, you find the ashes still that you can recognize this is the ash from the book. But if it goes on burning, then it just disintegrates completely, and you can't even tell what is book ash and what is some other ash. And so everything here seems to be akshara, changeable. Everything is destructible. And so it seems to be that it has nothing to do with the imperishable being. And besides being perishable, everything here is limited. This book is just this much, contained within borders. Everything is, even mountains are contained within borders. Even a planet is contained by the space surrounding it, which limits it. And yet here, things seem to be dull. Much of the things insentient, many of the things painful, and so forth. And yet the Upanishad tells us that everything here, all of these bhava, all of these existences, all of these things are of the same nature as, which indicates that we are seeing things wrongly. We are, and not just an incarnation like Sri Ramakrishna, but a person of illumination sees things as they really are. They see that everything is a manifestation of that reality. They see a book, a glass, a cup, a table, a human being, as manifestations of that imperishable being. Even in their perishable manifest form, it's a perishable form of the imperishable reality. And that remains there shining. The beautiful reminiscences of Lillian Montgomery, of Swami Vivekananda, which once a year or so I quote from. She was a young woman who went to Swamiji's lectures in 1900 in New York. After Swamiji had returned from California, before he returned to India, he spent about 3 weeks or so, I forget exactly how long, but several weeks in New York City, and from there left for Europe. So during that period, she used to go to his lectures. And she says that everything she said about it in her, one of the most descriptive reminiscences that you can find of Swamiji, the impression that Swamiji made on someone who had a perceptive mind. And she said that as I watched him speak, I had this strange, mysterious feeling that if the form of the Swami were to disappear, that which the form represented, that would remain forever, that it was unchanging, that it would remain forever, it would go on shining forever. So she actually had that sense as she watched Swamiji, that here is his form, and because Swamiji was Swamiji, because he was an illumined soul, and because he was transparent, so someone who had the eyes to see it as she did, it's the only place I've seen someone who describes Swamiji in these terms. But she said, but I felt that power which was there present as the Swami, that if this form of his were to disappear, that power would remain forever. That power would remain forever. And so that's true of everything. That akshara, aksharad from that imperishable being, all of these beings have come, all of these manifestations have come, and they are that right now. The form is perishable, but they are forms of the imperishable, just as a wave on the ocean. The wave on the ocean as a wave, it's very transitory. It rises, it changes form, it moves across the face of the ocean, and then it breaks and then dies down. As a wave, it's perishable, but it's nothing but water. And as water, it's imperishable. It continues as water. And so everything here, the form is a temporary appearance of that imperishable Brahman. So this is a beautiful verse which it opens with. And then in what will come next time, it begins to talk about the nature of that. And so that we will save for next time. So let me give announcements, and then if there are any questions, I'll take those. So for announcements, on Thursday, we will have the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna class at the usual time, 11 o'clock in the morning. And then on Sunday, we will have a lecture. It will be on the goddess Lakshmi, part of the series on gods and goddesses that I do from time to time. One of our beloved devotees who passed away a couple of years ago during the early period of the pandemic, Peggy, she had asked me to do a series on the Hindu gods and goddesses. So I began then and have continued. So this will be on Lakshmi. And then the main announcement for now, special announcement, is that on April 1st, Swami Sarvadevananda is coming, and our Swapna, our secretary, has prepared flyers, which will be sent out shortly. One flyer for his activities while he's here, and another flyer for the next announcement, which is about the inauguration of the retreat. So first about his activities. He comes on Friday, the 1st of April, and in the late afternoon, 5 o'clock, we will have a program, a satsang with the Swami, where he will address the devotees. What's that?
Because you said I am from Dallas. I'm sorry, from Austin. I thought you said
Oh, is that what we did? Oh, okay, I thought it was the opposite. You're probably right. You've been making the flyer, so you would know better than. So erase what I said. He will come. He will come on April 1st, but we will have a program in the evening at 7 o'clock, so that there's plenty of time for him to get here and to relax after he gets here. So 7 o'clock there will be a satsang with the Swami. Then the next morning, he will be giving initiation to those who have asked for initiation and have arranged for it. Saturday morning, so that's a private event. It's not something that the public is invited to. It's something that the public is turned away from. So that will just be for the initiates. And then Saturday afternoon, by Saturday afternoon, Swami Atmarupananda will be here from Washington, D.C., and Pravrajika Brahmaprana will be here from Dallas. And so Saturday late afternoon at 5 o'clock, we will have a program in which the three of them, Swami Sarvadevananda, Pravrajika Brahmaprana, and Swami Atmarupananda will all speak. And then the next morning, Sunday, April 3rd, we will all go up to Trinity. There will be no service here in Houston. We'll go to Trinity, to the new retreat, the Lone Star over Trinity retreat in Trinity, Texas, for the formal inauguration of the property which we bought just 1 year ago. And so Swami Sarvadevananda, Pravrajika Brahmaprana, and Swami Atmarupananda will all be there for the inauguration. And we'll have a program starting at 11 o'clock with worship. And then the lunch will be served to everyone. Then we'll tell everyone about the development of the retreat and take people for a tour of the property. And then there will be some singing, and there will be a dance recital, and then guided meditation. And so you're all invited, and people from our various Texas centers and surrounding areas are invited to come for that. So those are the announcements for now. So no questions on the internet. Anyone here have any question? No. Okay. So then we will close with the chant. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Om. That infinite reality is From out of the fullness of that infinite reality, the fullness of this universe has come, and yet that reality remains ever the same. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all the beings of the universe.